Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jackie Scheib. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Global Ties Alabama, and I am so delighted this afternoon to welcome you to Global Perspectives Institute. This is our weekly webinar where we're able to address a variety of global topics. And today I'm so excited about our forum and our participants. As you know, we've entitled it Young Professionals Capturing Global Perspectives. And maybe I'm excited because I love working with young people. I love to see the fruits of the labor of us old timers. And today we have a wonderful panel, and also excited about our moderator. So I'd like to introduce to you today Josh Daniels. Josh is a new member of the Global Ties Alabama team. He is a global citizen, having lived in the US and Japan. He's a proud graduate of Mississippi State. Every once in a while that slips out in the office. And he gave me a lecture the other day about how much he enjoys diverse cultures. He's worked in the global diplomacy industry and is just real excited to be able to not just sit at his desk, but to be actively involved. And today, the opportunity to moderate one of our distinguished panels. We're excited about his leadership in that role. So Josh, I'm going to turn it over to you now to introduce our panelists.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that intro. You make me sound better than I actually am. No, I'm just joking. But like you said, I'm an alumni of Mississippi State University. I got a bachelor's in marketing from there with a minor in international marketing. And for the last 2 years, I've been getting my hands dirty in global diplomacy. I worked with a company called GDC, Global Diplomacy Continuum, where they worked on the business side of diplomacy. And I was really looking to make an impact on the human side of diplomacy. So I found a company here called Global Ties Alabama. Well, actually, they found me and they put me in a very good position to make an impact. And one of the things we've been doing recently, I guess for a while actually, is working with young professionals and youth and introducing them to global citizenship, which was introduced to me at a young age. I grew up a military brat of the Air Force. My dad served for 23 years. And we had a fun time traveling around. But one of the things my parents emphasized was the need to appreciate cultures, especially the cultures that host you. And what I learned from those cultures and from my parents teaching me about them is that every culture teaches you a new perspective. And I believe that here, my panelists also share that passion of perspective and global citizenship. So today I'd like to introduce my panel. I have 3 people with me: Takara Lake, Jabari Smith, and Marcel Bora. 3 of these people, like I said, are all passionate about global citizenship. I'd like to begin by introducing Takara Lake. She's the Director of Education at the Santa Fe Council on International Relations over in New Mexico. She is very educated on international matters, having both a bachelor's and a master's in international studies, one from the University of New Mexico, and the master's is from the Missouri State University. Because of her educational background, she has an emphasis on post-war reconstruction education, and she's now in a position of education with the Santa Fe Council. Like our other panelists, she is a global citizen, and she has lived in Bosnia, Lebanon, and Poland. The next panelist we have has an amazing background in global citizenship, Jabari Smith. He is the owner of Jabari Inspires, motivational speaking and global citizenship, which inspires youth and young professionals to interact on a global level. After graduating from Harvard University with a bachelor's in broadcast journalism, he has not stopped being busy. He's been all over the world. He's served as the chief operations officer for Africa Community Development Media in Kenya. He was also in Kenya as a consultant for a Kenyatta Trust Executive Mentorship Program. Not only has he been in Kenya, but he's worked in Chicago, New York City, LA, like I said, Kenya, Morocco, and I'm sure a lot of other places. Right now, he's in Chicago as the program manager with World Chicago, where he leads the development and implementation of the Department of State's Professional Fellows Program. And last but not least, we have Marshall Bora. He is down in Pensacola, Florida, and he's a bit of a globetrotter himself. He's lived here in the US, the United Kingdom, and in Japan like me. He is an alumni of the University of South Florida. He received a bachelor's degree in international relations, and he is one of 17 Global Ties US emerging leaders now in 2020. Like our other panelists, he has a passion for global citizenship and young professionals, and he's the youth coordinator and facilitator for Gulf Coast Diplomacy in Pensacola, Florida. Now that I've introduced all three of our panelists, I'm sure you heard a couple pop words. Hopefully one of them was global citizenship, and the other one was young professionals. That's what our topic's going to be today about. We know from the background of our panelists that they are all passionate about this, but I really want to know more about their programs and the projects and how those are emphasized within those programs. So the prompt for my three panelists today will be the same. What programs/projects are you working on? And how do they emphasize global citizenship to young professionals? We'll start with Takara, we'll be followed by Jabari, and then Marchell. Takara, would you like to begin?
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. I'm really honored again. Thank you for inviting me to be a panelist on this session, and I'm very excited to be presenting for Global Ties Alabama. So I'm actually going to share my screen so that way I can show you some photos, and we will take it away from there. Okay, so today, as Josh kindly mentioned, I'm the Director of Education at the Santa Fe Council on International Relations. I'm a born and raised New Mexican, so for me, I'm very passionate about giving New Mexican students the opportunity to learn about international affairs, which was something that I did not have when I was in high school. Most of the programs I'm going to talk to you about today are high school level, but we also have many opportunities for college students and young professionals as well. Okay, so in 2018 and 2019, this is what our education programs look like. Very interactive, large groups. We had conferences and simulations and panels. And in 2020, it looks really familiar for, I'm sure, a lot of us here. This is currently what my day-to-day work looks like, transitioning those education programs that we had in 2018 and 2019 to Zoom-based. And I'm about to talk about two of the programs that are my main focus, and we've transitioned. The first is our high school fellowship. So I tell everyone that if there is a silver lining to COVID, which is hard to find one, but the silver lining that we have discovered is that we're able to offer our programs to a wider variety of students, typically those that we would not have been able to reach in a pre-COVID world, a pre-digital world. So this year we have 30 high school fellows, freshmen to senior, who were selected competitive because of their interest in international affairs. They're across the state in rural areas in metropolitan Albuquerque and Santa Fe. They meet twice per month digitally. So typically the first hour we try and introduce them to a speaker, a global citizen who has led a really interesting and fascinating career. So for example, I think probably the most popular speaker we've had is a prosecutor from the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. And she talks to students about how she got involved in international law, and then also what students can do if they think that this career is interesting for them. This was made possible, us having these speakers, due to digital, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to get person just due to distance in New Mexico. So in addition to the first hour typically meeting with the speaker, the students are working on two projects. And so the first is we sort of turn the tables on them, and we are actually having the students create a digital live stream conference. So my life revolves around Zoom meetings and scheduling these like GPI type events. And so now I'm asking the students to do the same, so that way they can get that experience as well. But the bigger project, and why I'm really excited to be presenting here today, is a photo exchange that we have begun. This is actually the second year that we have done this project. But this year we're working with international students from Albania, Egypt, Mexico, and Uzbekistan, but also domestic students. So we have some from Hawaii, Montana, Philadelphia, and hopefully after this session today, we can possibly get some from Alabama. And so I'm going to talk about what exactly the photo exchange is on the next page, but any high school student, even if they're not located in Alabama, they're welcome to participate. So this is what photo exchange looks like. We are using a platform called Padlet, and it's free for students to access, and I monitor the entire platform to make sure there's no inappropriate comments. But by and large, the students we work with are awesome, and we usually don't have that problem. But for example, a prompt would be introduce yourself. So this is one of our Egyptian international students. So they post a photo, they introduce themselves, they use the cute little emojis. So it's cool, and so it really engages the high school students. Another prompt we might have is on traditions, whatever that may look like. This is a photo taken by one of our Uzbek students. Her father owns a wholesale store in Bukhara. And so they sell pottery and ceramics there, which are traditional to their culture. And then this is probably my most favorite prompt that we've done, and this is the one we're working on currently, is windows. So just take a photo of the outside. So right now in Santa Fe, we have 6 inches of snow. So I would take a photo of that and show the students, like, look, this is what I see outside my window. This is a very typical image of rural New Mexico. So I would encourage, if you know any high school students or you think this might be interesting for your students to participate in, just email me and I can explain more of the actual logistical details. But the second thing, and this really goes into professional development for high school, college, and young professionals, is we have discovered at our organization, we need to help students better understand media literacy. So this is our 3rd year that we are hosting a large conference at our organization called Journalism Under Fire. The theme is covering crisis this year. But we found that it would be very beneficial to have a large student component as part of the conference. So 3 of the projects we're working on, we have arranged Pulitzer Center workshops for students. We held the first one this past Saturday on underreported events. But this coming Saturday, so the 31st, Halloween, and then the weekend after that, we're going to look at how do you become an investigative journalist? What are some ethics of journalism? And then the last session will be on photojournalism. We have also created media literacy modules that tie into our conference, but will hopefully teach students some of the skills that they need to have in the 21st century navigating that difficult digital world. And then the last thing I'll mention is we have 2 student sessions during the conference itself. And one will be with the national editor of Time magazine, who will talk about what it takes to, after a journalist writes a story, what does it take before they see that in print or published online. And then the last session is we're going to have a former CIA analyst discuss with students how they can better detect mis and disinformation and what's the difference between the 2. So this is my last slide, but I think it's really important to show the impact that these programs have for students. And so I'm not going to read them all verbatim, but I think the common theme between these 4 testimonials that I retrieved from our students is that they are from underprivileged and underrepresented communities here in New Mexico, and they never thought that they would have the opportunity in high school to learn about international affairs. They didn't think these type of programs existed in New Mexico, and so a lot of them here will say, you know, I was interested in these topics, but the rest of the world seems a really long ways away from Santa Fe or Albuquerque or Moriarty. And so I wanted to share this with you all because I do think it's important to see what the impact is for students. So I'm going to end there. And I would be happy to answer questions during the Q&A session. And of course, if you have any other specific questions you'd like to ask me by email, I'm more than happy to answer as well. But thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing and turn over the baton.
Sweet, over to you, Jabari.
Unmute.
Yes, Takara, that was an amazing presentation, very inspiring, and I'm very curious to know what those 8 skills needed to be a diplomat are that you keep on that list between your phone and your phone case. So I will be following up with you on that. Again, it's such an honor to be a part of this panel. I am new to World Chicago. I just joined the team 1 month ago. So I already have been able to really exercise so many of my passions and showcase so many of my talents within this 1 month, which further proves that this is definitely the right opportunity for me. I want to give you guys a little bit of insight into my background, ultimately what led me to World Chicago. I am a proud native of New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised in the Gulf Coast, as I previously mentioned to my fellow panelists prior to the event beginning. And I will say that growing up in New Orleans is what created a strong foundation of appreciation for culture for me. Obviously, many of you all are aware of the rich culture, heritage, and history that New Orleans boasts. So I stand on that foundation proudly, and I always say that when I go out into the world, I go out into the world as a New Orleanian first, not an American first, but as a New Orleanian first, because I feel that many people have a linear perception of the US, so I often try to expose them to cities and cultures that exist within our country that perhaps aren't as highlighted in mainstream media. So beyond growing up in New Orleans, this place with rich culture, I attended Howard University, not Harvard University, Howard University in Washington, D.C. I'm a proud Howard University alum. Howard University is a historically Black college, and it has educated some of the premier African-American scholars, intellects, and global leaders of our time. And it was at Howard that I gained a greater perception for diversity. Prior to attending Howard, many people said, well, do you think that you'll get a strong perception of what the real world is like if you go to a historically Black college? And I'm so happy that my experience there proved that notion wrong, because it was at Howard that I really began to understand that diversity is not merely aligned with race or ethnicity or religion. Diversity is so much more aligned with your interests, your passions, your talents, and your skills. And at Howard, without this pressure of feeling the need to exist in racial or ethnic boxes, I was able to fully explore, my passions and my talents, as well as connect with people whose passions and talents were as diverse as my own. Howard's motto is leadership for America in the global community. So as I was matriculating through the institution, I knew that I wanted to take a major leap beyond my comfort zone. So much like Marcel and Josh, I also lived in Japan. I moved to Japan beyond graduating from Howard. I joined the JET program, the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, which is a renowned international exchange program that places native speakers of English in rural communities throughout Japan. So here I was, 21 years old, fresh from the coop, so to speak, and I was placed in a rural town in northern Japan, a town called Fujisaki in the Aomori Prefecture. I was the only foreigner in my town and the first Black man to ever live there, which sent ripples throughout the community. Everywhere I went, I was compared to 50 Cent, Will Smith, Diddy. And this was during the time of President Obama's inaugural term. So I was also Obama sensei. This experience for me was awesome, because certainly while it was my first time living in a culture distinctly different from my own, it showcased the importance of cross-cultural immersion, but it also served as a reminder to me of how much I stood to teach others about my culture as an American and specifically as an African American. Japan is what opened me up to the world of international travel. During that time, I traveled all throughout Southeast Asia, on down to Oceania, Australia, and New Zealand. And I would say that years later, the opportunity that I received to move to Nairobi, Kenya, certainly is a result of the experience that I had in Japan. Now, I'd like to share a video that highlights a bit of some of what I've learned in my cross-cultural travels. I'll share my screen. I delivered a TEDx talk in 2014 when I was living in Kenya. And in that talk, I highlighted an experience that I had traveling to the Middle East and facilitating a speaking engagement at Zayed University in Dubai. Now, this clip will showcase what I learned in that moment and why that was such a pivotal experience for me.
Karate students at Zayed University in Dubai. During our discussion, I asked the young ladies what they thought the American perception of them was. They responded, or at least one of them responded, "I know that they're scared of us. They look at us differently because of the way we dress, but they don't understand. It's just clothing." In that moment, I felt a wall come tumbling down that I had no idea was there. Here I was in all my self-righteous global citizenship glory, coming to terms that I too had harbored misperceptions about another culture.
Great. So in that moment of speaking to these young ladies at Zayed University in Dubai, as the video expressed, I realized that I too, in all of the experiences that I'd had traveling the world and engaging with other cultures, was also unconsciously harboring these misperceptions, these stereotypes of Middle Eastern culture. And this is what has inspired and motivated me on my journey as a global citizen, because I know, as a famous Kenyan proverb states, that seeing is drastically different than being told. And so my journey has really been about not only exposing myself, but ultimately striving to inspire others to step beyond their comfort zones, to see the beauty of the world that surrounds us. Now, a lot of this work has been steeped in a focus on inspiring young people to be global citizens. While I was in Kenya, where I initially went for 2 months to study social entrepreneurship, and ultimately stayed for 4 years, and I was so enthralled with the culture and the people, as well as how drastically different it was from my experience in Japan, I had an opportunity to host my own TV series called Jabari Inspires. The TV series chronicled my youth leadership work across East Africa, as well as my intercultural leadership work. But just to further iterate the points that I was making, I'm extremely passionate about inspiring young people of all cultures, from all backgrounds, to really understand that they are an integral part of the fabric of the global community. So my personal mission, which is what led me to even exploring opportunities at an organization like World Chicago, is to inspire others, particularly young people, to step beyond their comfort zones, to become global citizens. The work that I'm doing at World Chicago aligns with all of the work that I've done over the past 10 years. And I found myself in a really wonderful position leading the Professional Fellows Program at World Chicago, which hosts young professionals between the ages of 25 and 40 from the Balkans region, hosts them in a fellowship that grants them the opportunity to come to the United States, specifically Chicago, to engage with emerging business professionals, leaders, and government officials in Chicago so that they can exchange best practices and ultimately go back to their home countries to implement what they've learned. In turn, the leaders that they've worked with in Chicago get an opportunity to participate in an exchange as well. Within 4 to 6 months after these fellows have gone back to their countries, we then bring the host, who have supported them in the organizations in the United States. We bring them to, for example, Croatia. This year would have been Slovenia. So there's this amazing dual exchange opportunity that exists for not only these young professionals who are doing great work in their respective industries in the Balkans region, but also for the leaders, entrepreneurs, and business people in Chicago who are equally passionate about global exchange.
I think we're going to move on to Marshall, Mr. Bora.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be able to speak. My name is Marshall Bora. I am the youth coordinator at Gulf Coast Diplomacy. As it was said, I've lived in Japan. My mother was in the military, and so I've had a lot of chances to be kind of a global citizen. I've lived in Japan, England, and several other places around the States. And so kind of growing up in that environment allowed me to become more aware of different cultures as I traveled around. And talking to different military kids, you kind of have your own little mix of wherever you are and then the US as well. So when I came back to the States and I went to a public high school and I went to university here, it was interesting seeing how little other people knew about different cultures and about different countries. So I kind of like the idea of being able to teach other people about the different cultures and different communities around the world. So that kind of led me into what I'm doing today. And I am helping run the Youth Diplomats program at Gulf Coast Diplomacy. Youth Diplomats is a year-long experiential program that was established in 2017. It was started to address the need in the community that there were other students, there were students in the community that wanted to focus on foreign affairs like I had myself. So Youth Diplomats was created to kind of fill that niche. The program is now in its 4th cohort, with each year of the program starting in May. We were inspired by Youth Diplomats Chicago, thank you guys, and have adjusted our program accordingly because the communities in Northwest Florida and Chicago are a little different. And I have a slide to start playing. So let me do that real quick. Thank you. All right, here is a intro that we like to use for a lot of our Youth Diplomats events. Then we'll go on to the next slide. So Youth Diplomats is youth-led, and they do different topics every meeting. We meet monthly, and the students lay out a calendar every 6 months to discuss what they are going to talk about at each meeting. They have a leadership committee that is trained in facilitation skills, and they meet before and after our general meetings, just to discuss what kind of roles they will be taking during the general meetings. The students hold elections every year to decide who's going to be in the leadership committee. The program focuses on topics of global importance, building leadership skills, and encouraging community service. Some of the topics we've covered this past year include cybersecurity, civil society, environmental protection, global warming, and militarized zones around the world. We're lucky in Pensacola to have so many different community service opportunities. We have several different environmental and civil society community service organizations, and it allows the students to kind of reach out and explore different types of ways they can help their community, not just through foreign affairs. These are some pictures from the last couple of years. We have some students volunteering at the Environmental Protection Agency of Florida, and then the other 2 photos are youth diplomats creating schedules and attending leadership workshops. So in 2019, we had practice with virtual programming, so we were able to jump right into it when coronavirus hit, for better or worse. So we have kept up our monthly meetings, but there are some drawbacks to going virtual. We have shortened the meetings after a poll that we took with the students, and they decided it was better for them, and it's honestly been better for us to keep the meetings short just because of how tired you get after Zoom fatigue. I'm sure we've all experienced it, and we all know what it's like. But there are some pluses to going virtual as well. We've been able to visit places virtually, such as the Image with the Llama down in the corner. And we've also had a opportunity to dance. We had a little dance lesson one time. And we are able to be joined by more international visitors than we would be in physical in-person meetings. When the pandemic is over, we're going to take advantage of this learning opportunity, and we're going to do a hybrid of both virtual and in-person meetings just to get the best of both worlds. Also, we have had several community service opportunities virtually just through websites like the Smithsonian, and I can't remember the name of the website, but there was one place where you could count fish in a 30-second time, so then you could kind of discover how many different fish live in the lake, and that helped environmental protection agencies and wildlife and fish. So it's been an honor working with these kids. It's amazing seeing how driven they are. I know, like I said, I wanted to teach other people, but just the way that these kids are like going out there and trying to show all their classmates how it's done, and like cross-cultural communication, it's astounding, and I am very proud of all of them. So thank you all again for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Those were our three panelists. Now we're going to have a quick Q&A session if you have any questions for them. I know I do. I'm going to start by asking a simple question. Why is global citizenship important to you? And we'll start with Takara.
Now I know how my students feel when I'm like, you get to answer. So global citizenry is really important personally, and also for educating youth, because often we find that youth here in the community, and I was this way as well in high school, that we're so focused on the issues that we think are important. And then when you start learning about the world, you begin to broaden your horizons and realize that, okay, my car broke down. It's probably not the end of the world. There are bigger issues we need to be concerned with. But also, I grew up in an era where we used plastic bags at Walmart, and now you see them starting to like phase them out. But then you have to think, where does that plastic bag go when you just throw it away? It has global ramifications. And I think teaching global citizenry, you begin to think about issues like that in a bigger, broader sense, which is really important.
Marshall or Jabari, do you have anything to add to that? I think that was a wonderful answer.
It was.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to add something. For me, I am so passionate about encouraging and empowering others to take the limits off. So many people, let's say specifically in the United States of America, never leave their cities, never leave their states, never leave their regions, let alone the country. So for me, global citizenship is a motivating factor which inspires and encourages others to understand that your dreams and goals and visions for your life do not have to be limited to your immediate environment. Prior to joining World Chicago, I spent 2 years facilitating and leading students from all across the US on experiential leadership and service learning trips through an organization called Pathways Education. And it was such a joy to be able to travel with these students beyond their comfort zones and to see not only their minds be expanded, but their hearts as well. So for me, global citizenship is truly about understanding that no matter where you choose to take your journey, you will be welcomed with, a warm embrace, because oftentimes we're so, there's so much negativity that's perpetuated in the media around the world. And I truly feel that having the opportunity to experience the kindness and the goodness of people, of our fellow global citizens, is truly an encourager and a reminder that you can take your journey wherever you choose to take it. And that's how I choose to live my life, in hopes of encouraging others to do the same.
Wonderful.
Yeah, is it all right if I?
Yeah,
I definitely agree. As once during college, my professor had said something along the lines of, as the world gets bigger, it gets smaller, right? Just because with globalization and everybody kind of reaching out, and with the internet, I can text. I have a friend in Japan right now that I could text immediately. So kind of understanding the different cultures and crossing those bridges allows you to easily connect. And not only in professional, but it's also super fun to go visit different places and just meet different people, and just see the sights and kind of take in everything as you're going around.
Those are great answers. If we don't have answers from the people watching, I'm going to end with one last question for each of you. It's the same. What is some advice for youth and young professionals interested in starting a career in global diplomacy? And again, we'll start with Takara.
That's a tough one. So I would start probably by educating myself on the world. And it's something we can all do, because whether it's right or not, starting a career in international affairs is sometimes difficult. And it matters if you've traveled abroad. And sometimes folks don't have the resources, which is why I think it's so important when organizations like ours can help students get that international experience, because many of them just, it's not in their realm of possibility at this given moment. I would say learn about the world and don't be afraid of taking risks. And if that means don't disqualify yourself and look at a job posting and say, oh my gosh, I could never get that job or that internship. Don't be afraid of trying and start. We do the global to local, start local and start volunteering with organizations here. And then as you meet more folks and build a network, you can start making your way up into other organizations that might seem impossible right now. But step one is learn about the world as much as you can.
Jabari?
I would like to follow up to Takara's response by saying, seek out mentorship. I feel that mentorship is critical, whether you're looking to pursue a career in the international relations field or not. Nothing can compensate for having a mentor, someone who encourages and supports you and has walked the path that you seek to walk, which is why I often try to make myself this invaluable resource to the young people I work with, not just within the context of the organization or the specific experience that we're having, but letting them know, hey, whatever you need from me that can support you furthering your dreams and goals, let me know. Furthermore, I think it's important for young people to seek out study abroad and international exchange opportunities. Certainly we're in a weird time in which that's not as readily available, but again, as so many people mentioned, this virtual reality that we're currently living in makes a lot of these opportunities much more accessible. I didn't study abroad in undergrad, and it's one of the things that I wish I would have done. I was more so concerned with not missing out on all of the events and, campus life, which I'm happy that I did take advantage of that. But I would say the opportunity to study abroad while you're in college can be an invaluable experience. And oftentimes you can do that for little to no cost. So I think it's taking advantage of opportunities that are presented to you to travel the world, engage with other cultures that don't put a strain on your pocket. Because I know that most people think of travel and they think of, a financial burden. But as we know, there are so many opportunities for you to get out into the world that will pay you even. For example, the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, which was my first time going abroad. So I think we're here for a very specific purpose, and that's to enlighten and to provide information. Clearly, there is a lack of information, and there is an information gap, particularly when it comes to underserved communities. So seeking out that information, empowering yourself around the world, as Takara said, but also seeking out mentorship and taking risks. Nothing beats taking leaps of faith and taking risks, betting on yourself.
To build off of what Takara and Jabari said, yes, the mentorship and kind of taking a leap of faith and then being aware of everything around you But I would also say, don't be afraid to look. I know my university, I also did not take advantage of studying abroad when I was doing my undergraduate, which is a shame, but I did enjoy being here. But I think we were talking about it before the meeting started. I didn't know what a CBM was before I had like actually heard of it. So there's so many opportunities out there that people can't see because they don't have anybody to connect to. So if anybody is interested in like traveling abroad or any sort of international thing, just all you got to do is go in online and type international opportunities, and then you'll have a long list of different things. And as Jabari said, there's scholarships and such like stuff like that. So
Wonderful advice. I hope we have a lot of people come and join us as global citizens. Thank you again to my panelists and to everyone watching. I'm going to throw it over to Jacqueline Shipe. She's going to give us a little outro. And I believe with election season coming up, or election day coming up, we will not have a Global Perspective Institute on the 3rd, is it? Or next Tuesday? But other than that, thank you guys all so much.
Thank you very much, Josh, and to our panelists, Takara, Jabari, and Marcel. What a wonderful discussion. Thank you for sharing your experiences, which I know will be quite motivating. One of the things that we do with our Global Perspective Institutes is that we do record these sessions and we're able to share them with stakeholders, especially at our schools and other youth organizations. So please know that today's session, regardless of the numbers who were in the audience, there will be a larger audience. This will also be on YouTube, and we will share, I guess, with our Facebook page. As Josh has indicated, we have a very important day next Tuesday, and in order to give it the attention that it needs, everyone needs to be out voting and helping others to vote. Here are some real statistics about the importance of voting. And so we want to move from enthusiasm to action. And so we didn't want anyone to have an excuse if they had to attend the Global Perspectives Institute. We'd rather you be out there voting. And so we will not have our Global Perspectives Institute next Tuesday. Our next Global Perspectives Institute will be on emerging leaders. It'll be part 2, and it will be moderated by Global Ties Alabama's emerging leader for 2020, Kezia Daniel, and she'll be talking with emerging leaders from 2014, 2017, 2016, and 2020. Where are they now? What are they doing? What has been the impact of their experience as a emerging leader? And so we're delighted. We invite you to do this with others. And again, many thanks to you for joining today's young professionals who definitely communicated, capturing global perspectives. And we're just appreciative of their efforts. And we look forward to continued working together. Thank you for the examples that you shared, and we look forward to your continued success. Have a wonderful day, everyone.